Hare Krishna, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Reading Putrada Ekadashi, also known as Pavitropana Ekadashi, from the Bhaviṣya Purāṇa. Yudhishthira Maharaj said, O Madhusudana, O killer of the Madhu demon, please be merciful to me and describe to me the Ekadashi that occurs during the light fortnight of the month of Sravana, July-August. The Supreme Lord Shri Krishna replied, Yes, O King, I shall happily narrate its glories to you. For just by hearing about this sacred Ekadashi, one attains the merit of performing a horse sacrifice. At the dawn of Dwapara Yoga, there lived a king by the name Mahījita, who ruled the kingdom of Māhīṣmatī-purī. Because he had no son, his entire kingdom seemed utterly cheerless to him. A married man who has no son gains no happiness in this life or the next. For a long time, this king tried very hard to obtain an heir, but to no avail. Seeing his years advancing ever onwards, King Mahījita became increasingly anxious. One day he told an assembly of his advisors, I have committed no sin in this life, and there is no ill-gotten wealth in my treasury. I have never usurped the offerings to the demigods or brahmanas. When I waged war and conquered kingdoms, I followed the rules and regulations of the military art, and I have protected my subjects as if they were my own children. I punished even my own relatives if they broke the law, and if my enemy was gentle and religious, I welcomed him. O twice-born souls, although I am a religious and faithful follower of the Vedic standard, still my home is without a son. Kindly tell me the reason for this. So here is the setting of this story. King Mahījita of the kingdom Māhīṣmatī-purī. So we can see here that he is very much desiring to obtain a son. Putra. Putra, the meaning of putra, if you separate both syllables, I know that tra is for trayate, I believe, to protect from, and pu, I believe it refers to one of the hellish planets. So a son in the Vedic culture is very important because the son is supposed to carry on religious duties when the father and mother leave their bodies, and therefore if somehow or other the parent have been degraded to a hellish planet, then the son can liberate them, and this is by performing the Shraddha ceremony. So Shraddha ceremony, basically they offer Vishnu Prasadam to the departed souls, and this helps the soul on his journey onward back to moksha, or back to the spiritual planet. So here this king is very much anxious, especially a king who needs a son to bestow his kingdom upon. In Vedic culture, kings were voluntarily retiring. They were not sticking up to the post forever until their last breath, or until they were being dragged down by the populace. So no, they were very responsible both on the material platform and the spiritual platform. So here the king mentioned some of his duties on the material platform, religious duties. So he said that he never committed any sin. There's no ill-gotten wealth. So there are means for Kshatriyas to maintain their livelihood and their kingdom, and he never committed any sins in order to acquire any of this wealth. Then he says that he never took the money, the offering met for demigods or brahmanas. So this is a great sin according to Manusmriti, Manu Samhita, if one takes away the offering meant for demigods or brahmanas, he is guilty of a great sin. There's an interesting story in this regard in the Krishna book in relation with King Nirga, who gave a cow to a brahmana. Actually, he was giving thousands of cows, but one of these cows on its own accord came back into the herd of the king's possession, and the king gave that same cow away to another brahmana. In other words, he took a brahmana's possession and again gave it away. So there was some quarrel between these two brahmanas, and the king said, I can give you thousands and thousands of cows to both of you, so please do not be angry. But the brahmana was displeased with the king and said no. So simply due to this, he had to take birth as a lizard. So just see how it is very sinful to take away the wealth of a brahmana or a Vaishnava. Of course, he got the blessing of the Lord. He was found by the Lord. Actually, the children of the Yadu dynasty, they saw that big lizard into a well, and the Lord extended his arm to take out the lizard and blessed him by touching him with his lotus feet. And in this way, the lizard turned into a beautiful demigod. So that means that the king had finished exhausting his impious activities and was now ready to enjoy his pious activities in the heavenly kingdom. So here he says also that when he waged war, that king Mahījita, when he waged war, he never used unfair means or unlawful means. During military fights between Kshatriyas, there are many rules and regulations of combat. For example, between mace fighters, one cannot strike down the opponent below the waist. One, while using bow and arrow, cannot strike an opponent who is unaware of him being attacked by you. Therefore, one has to challenge, even in the battlefield. One has to scream out the name. And when the enemy faces you and accepts the challenge, then one must fight. When an enemy drops his weapon and runs away in fear, one can never strike in the back. You cannot fight lesser soldiers. If you are on a chariot and someone has no chariot, you cannot fight that soldier. You need to get down. If the soldier in front has no weapon, you should throw away your weapon and wrestle by hand. In this way, there's many rules and regulations. Of course, in Kali Yoga, these are dreams only, but this used to be there, and we hear of many of such rules in the Mahabharata. For example, when Karna was trying to replace or take out the wheel that was sunken into the earth of his chariot, Arjuna cut off his head, and Karna said, "What is this? You are about to kill me, and I'm not even standing on my chariot. I'm unarmed in this way." So, of course, Arjuna followed the instructions of the Lord, which is transcendental to any mundane rules and regulations. So he's thinking here, why is this? I have no son. What did I do wrong? Also, it is said by Chanaka Pandit that a house without a son, there's no happiness there. So to beget a son is very much important according to Vedic scripture. It is also very important because the husband, according to the system of Varnashram Dharma, at one point will have to take sannyas. And at that point, the wife is supposed to stay under the care of the eldest son. So that is another important aspect of begetting a son, is that the son will be helping or protecting the mother in her old age. So let us continue. Hearing this, the king's Brahmana advisors discussed the subject among themselves, and with the aim of benefiting the king, they visited the various ashrams of the great sages. At last, they came upon a sage who was austere, pure, and self-satisfied, and who was strictly observing a vow of fasting. His senses were completely under control. He had conquered his anger, and he was expert in performing his occupational duty. Indeed, This great sage was expert in all the conclusions of the Vedas, and he had extended his lifespan to that of Lord Brahma himself. His name was Lomaśa Ṛṣi, and he knew past, present, and future. After each kalpa passed, one hair would fall out of his body. All the king's Brahmana advisors very happily approached him one by one to offer their humble respects. Just see here, the king was not independent in his actions. He would have a board of learned Brahmanas whom he would consult when such problems arose in his life, whether it be political, social, religious. So he would approach a board of learned Brahmana who would in turn advise him. And if the Brahmana were not sure of the path that the king should choose, as in this case, they would in turn approach an even higher authority, so a great sage, a great Muni. So here we hear the name Lomaśa Ṛṣi, who is very famous in all Vedic literature. So it is said that he extended his life to that of Lord Brahma. And after each kalpa passed, one hair would fall out of his body. Now, I do not know if this is the same Rishi that was said that he will live as many Brahmas as he has hair on his body, or the hair on the body of a cow. I have heard this story also. I'm not sure if this is the same. Maybe some of you can write in the comments below. So, we continue. Captivated by this great soul, King Mahījita's advisors offered obeisances to him and said very respectfully, "Only because of our great good fortune, O sage, have we been allowed to see you." Lomaśa Ṛṣi saw them bowing down to him and replied, "Kindly let me know why you have come here. Why are you praising me? I must do all I can do to solve your problems. For sages like me have only one interest, to help others. Do not doubt this." The king's representatives said, "We have come to you, O exalted sage, to ask for your help in solving a very serious problem, O sage. You are like Lord Brahma. Indeed, there is no better sage in the entire world. Or our king Mahījita is without a son, though he has sustained and protected us as if we were his sons. Seeing him so unhappy on account of being sonless, we have become very sad, O sage, and therefore we have entered the forests to perform severe austerities. By our good fortune we happened upon you. Everyone's desires and activities become successful just by your darshan. Thus we humbly ask that you tell us how our kind king can obtain a son." Hearing their sincere plea, Lomaśa Ṛṣi absorbed himself in deep meditation for a moment and at once understood the king's previous life. Then he said, "Your ruler was a merchant in his past life, and feeling his wealth insufficient, he committed sinful deeds. He traveled to many villages to trade his goods. Once at noon on the day after the Ekadashi that comes during the light fortnight of the month of Jeshta, he became thirsty while traveling from place to place. He came upon a beautiful pond on the outskirts of a village, but just as he was about to drink at the pond, a cow arrived there with her newborn calf. These two creatures were also very thirsty because of the heat. But when the cow and calf started to drink, the merchant rudely shoved them aside and selfishly slaked his own thirst. This offense against the cow and her calf has resulted in your king's being without a son now. But the good deeds he performed in his previous life have given him rulership over an undisturbed kingdom." So just see the importance of cow protection. How this little offense to a cow to simply push her away from from slacking her thirst, her and her calf, caused him to be without a son. So how much we have to be careful of not committing any sins and respecting all living entities. We never know in which way we will have to be punished for such impudency. Now, simply pushing away a cow. Now imagine sending hundreds and thousands of such magnificent, pure animal to the slaughterhouse. How can someone expect any happiness in the next life? Therefore, this world that we live in now is a complete hell, with this pandemic and this vaccination going on, and all those natural catastrophes that we see all over the world that are happening at a much faster rate than any time in our history. Why is this? It is directly linked to cow killing. Directly linked. Prabhupada said, do not think that these animals cannot protest. Material nature will get back at you. And this is what is happening now. All these people that are cow killers, they are being punished. Another point here is that one must enjoy the result of his pious activity, and one must suffer the result of his impious activities. So it is not necessarily that by committing pious activity you will counteract the impious activity. There are some means of atonement mentioned in the Vedas by which one can diminish one's sinful activities also. But this is not what the king did in his past life. He was performing pious activity, but also, as we can see, he committed sins. Of course, as devotees who chant Hare Krishna, we do not have to care for minimizing the sins of our past lives by atonement methods. No, simply by chanting Hare Krishna, that is sufficient. But that does not mean that we should be callous to the rules and regulations of Vedic society. We continue. Hearing this, the king's advisors replied, O renowned Rishi, we have heard that the Vedas say one can nullify the effects of one's past sins by acquiring merit. Be so kind as to give us some instruction by which our king's sins can be destroyed. Please give him your mercy so that the prince will take birth in his family. Lomaśa Ṛṣi said, there is an Ekadashi called Putrada, which comes during the light fortnight of the month of Sravana. On this day, all of you, including your king, should fast and stay awake all night, strictly following the rules and regulations. Then you should give the king whatever merit you gain by this fast. If you follow these instructions of mine, he will surely be blessed with a fine son. Here, an instruction for those who wish to have a son. Now, one thing mentioned here, you see that he asked the king and all the brahmanas there to observe this fast very strictly. So to complete fast during the Putrada Ekadashi and to stay awake all night. And then he asked the brahmana to give their merit to the king. This is something that we hear a few times in the Ekadashi stories, that one can give his earned merit to someone else. It is doable. And the way to do so is if one strictly follows this Ekadashi, for example, and wishes to give the merit to someone else. The next day on Vadasi, of course, this Ekadashi today is actually on Vadasi. So, but the next day, following Ekadashi, one should go in front of the Lord in his deity form and should pray to the Lord, and he should speak out that, my dear Lord, I am offering whatever merit I have gotten by performing this Ekadashi to such and such person. Please, my dear Lord, transfer the merit to that. So in this way, one will be giving the merit to that person. So, and here it is said on the authority of Lomaśa Ṛṣi that one can attain a son in this way. We continue. All the king's advisors became very pleased to hear these words from Lomaśa Ṛṣi, and they all offered him their grateful obeisances. Then, their eyes bright with happiness, they returned home. When the month of Sravana arrived, the king's advisors remembered the advice of Lomaśa Ṛṣi, and under their direction all the citizens of Māhīṣmatī-purī, as well as the king, fasted on Ekadashi. And on the next day, Dvadashi, the citizens dutifully offered their accrued merit to him. By the strength of all this merit, the queen became pregnant and eventually gave birth to a most beautiful son. So not the king only got his own merit, but the brahmana's merit and all the citizens' merit. So with all these merit combined, he managed to get a son. So if some of you wish to have a son and do not have a son, and you would like to, what I suggest is you try to follow as much as possible in the footstep of the king, and ask some other devotees to also perform this Ekadashi on your behalf and offer their result to you, their merit to you. So that will accrue, Of course, there's also many other rules and regulations to beget a son. In the Shastras on Garbhadhana Samskar, there is a mention on which day one should have sexual intercourse with one's wife in order to beget a son, how one should practice celibacy before trying to beget a son, so that the sukra, semina, be more than the blood of the female. When the semen is greater, it is a son. When the blood of the female, of the wife is greater, it influences towards daughter. Then there's different days. It is all calculated according to the Ritu Kala. Ritu Kala means the schedule of the wife's menstrual period. So on the first day that she has blood, this is the first day of the Ritu Kala. And in this way it is divided. And within the there's a certain period of time. For example, on the 12th day, from that day onward, one would beget a son. On the 14th day also, on the 16th day also, on the 18th day also. So one has to calculate in this way which day is the best. And there's also the time during the day. There's also even the position at the sexual intercourse that will affect. So all these things together will accumulate. Also there is the age that influences. So if the man is older, it influences towards a son. If the woman is older, towards a daughter. So there's other rules and regulations, that one can do, and ultimately everything depends on the Lord, of course. But still, this is a science, as we are using other science like medical science to get cured from diseases. And we also pray to the Lord. Similarly, we can also use this science line in line, side by side, with our prayers to the Lord. So we'll conclude. O Yudhishthira, Lord Krishna concluded, the Ekadashi that comes during the light fortnight of the month of Shravana has thus rightfully become famous as Putrada, bestower of the sun. Whoever desires happiness in this world and the next should certainly fast from all grains and legumes on this holy day. Indeed, whoever simply hears the glories of Putrada Ekadashi becomes completely free of all sins, is blessed with a good son, and surely ascends to heaven after death. Thus ends the Vrajavasi narration of the glories of Sravana Shukla Ekadashi, or Putrada Ekadashi, from the Bhaviṣya Purāṇa. So here, there's a footnote. So the Sanskrit word for son is putra. Pu is the name of a particular hell, and tra means to deliver. Thus the word putra means a person who delivers one from the hell named Pu. So this is what we have mentioned in the beginning. So you see, and now there is another footnote from Chanaka Pandit. Satyam matta pita jnanam dharmo bhrata dayasakha santihi patnik shamaputraha sadete mama vandavaha. Truth is my mother, knowledge is my father, my occupational duty is my brother. kindness is my friend, tranquility is my wife, and forgiveness is my son. These 6 are my family members. Among the 26 leading qualities of a devotee of the Lord, forgiveness is the topmost. Therefore, devotees should make an extra endeavor to develop this quality. Here Chanakana says, forgiveness is my son. And thus a devotee of the Lord, even though he may be on the path of renunciation, may observe this Ekadashi and pray to attain this kind of son, forgiveness. Okay, so we can see here again the beautiful stories of Ekadashi. Again, as we mentioned on every Ekadashi, the goal of following Ekadashi is actually to obtain pure devotional service to Lord Hari, to Krishna. That should be the goal, you know. Of course, if one desires also to beget a nice devotee child, that is not also outside the realm of devotional service. So we hope that you have liked this narration. We apologize that if we are uploading this quite late. We are very busy nowadays. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.